John Labriola and Councilmember Michael Heidingsfelder to our newest podcast today. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending the time with the community today. During this newest format of our successful podcast series from the town of Kiawah Island, we want to explore some of the details surrounding two very important projects for our entire community. First, the expansion of Freshfields, with an additional commercial area currently called Andell West, conceptualized by Riverstone. And second, the redesign of the island entrance area to mitigate the traffic backup at the first gate, to make this intersection safer for all of us, and to hopefully also find an acceptable solution for the development of the so-called Upper Beachwalker parcels. Let's start with the entrance area to our island. First, assuming that this is probably the most important topic for our community at the moment, I'm going to start with the first question for both of you. Maybe you can describe to us what the key problem areas are at the first gate from your perspective, and I'll start with you, Mayor.
Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
The front gate is the focal point for the island. It has served this island community very well for many, many, many years, but it is overwhelmed. And I think any of us that enter and exit the island certainly appreciate the level of backups that go sometimes all the way down to Cacique, congestions, and safety. There are pedestrians, bicyclists, cross traffic. It has just become a very, very dangerous intersection.
I agree. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's really crucial for us as we are growing the island and our community and welcome more and more visitors that we really take care of that entire area. As the mayor said, it's a safety issue, not just for vehicles, but also for pedestrians, for bicycles that are on their way to Freshfields. So I think we need to find a solution that help us to mitigate the traffic, improve the safety. But then also, I think there is more than just traffic and safety in play here, because this is the entrance to our island. This is what we want to see as a positive, experience for all of us, but also our visitors. And that also means that we need to look at this in a more holistic way. That means also at the Upper Beachwalker Drive parcels, as they are called, because some of this property might be necessary to be leveraged, for example, for the leisure trail to be more safe. But also we don't want, the immediate feeling when you enter the island, when you come around the Mingo Curve, and then you see large buildings in the background. I think we want to protect the way that this island feels, and I think that's also why we're not only looking at traffic and safety, but also at how we can find a compromise with the developer in very carefully develop the Upper Beachwalker Drive parcels as it relates to density and building heights and use patterns and traffic mitigation, etc.
Well, this is a perfect segue into the next question that I'll, if you continue on, in regards to, you talk about a solution, so what does that look like for the community? Because I'm sure they would like to know that.
I think so far these all are not new topics for us, right? We have tackled, the traffic issue at this intersection, but we kind of always approach this independent from each other. And I think the more we dived into this recently, I think we realized that it is really more about this holistic view. You need to look at this entire area as a whole, and also at the reasons why there is backup of traffic. It's not because there, is just a slow process. It is just how we are issuing passes, for example. So this whole area has a traffic issue per se. It has a safety issue. It is related to how we are issuing passes for guests, for visitors, etc. And we need property around this. And I think so far we have more looked at what we own and what we use, and that is limiting us. So if we look at the entire surrounding areas of properties, which is the north side of Kiawah Island Parkway, but then also what is called the Kiawah Island real estate property that maybe need to be leveraged in a certain way. We are certainly, limited in the general store area, because that is set with the gas station, etc. But then the Upper Beachwalker Drive parcels provide additional, ways and options route, for example, as I said earlier, the leisure trail. So I think we need to look at these things together. How we can leverage the Kiawah building also, if we not only talk about the property, and find a way to mitigate our concerns and the concerns of the community.
Wonderful. Would you like to add anything to that, Mayor?
Just that has always been the struggle that, prior mayors and prior councils have had. We've all done traffic-related studies, we've all done and made some modest improvements in that intersection as a whole that was always limited based upon the configuration that property that the community association owned, the town owned, and the developers owned. And what we tried to do, what we started to do last year is to think about what if there weren't a limitation relative to property. And I think probably as much as anything, the usage of that Kiawah Island real estate building has significantly diminished, not because of sales. People were buying many homes here on Kiawah, but the actual physical use of that building where people walk in and are buying homes, that has gone down. So consequently, we could see that there was less traffic in that building, and you just began to think, what if the town owned the building? What if we own the building, we own the land? How that whole composition of the spaces that Michael has mentioned could be brought together, it just changed everything. I think as everybody knows, the town owns land up to the gate, the association owns land and property owners on the other side of the gate. So this became an opportunity for us to really critically explore.
Well, thank you for that. We'll kind of jump into, we're talking about the Kiawah Island real estate building, so I'll turn over to you, and I'll ask you in regards to the past issue problems and the KIRA building. How would you, for example, see the building being used effectively for the community?
I mean, first of all, the pass issuing is a problem we need to tackle. At the moment, this all happens at the first gate, a major reason for the backup. If we can find a good combination of solutions for that pass issuing, first of all, can we do it electronically, right? Can renters, for example, or hotel guests already go online, print out the pass, and there's already a certain percentage of drivers that don't have to stop? Can we use a portion of the property, or even the building itself, the Kiawah building itself, for pass issuing, like other private islands and communities are actually doing this? But Sea Pines is a good example. You approach the gate, you make the right turn, get your pass, you go back in line and just browse through. At a proper speed, of course. So I think that is one part of the usage. And if this is going to be some kind of drive-by pass issuing a concept, if this is kind of an electronic self-service terminal, or if you really go into the building, or maybe all of this together, is one thing. The building itself can help us, and also Kika, for example, to use more office space. There is a multitude of ideas that we want to discuss. If this could be, for example, a nice facility for an additional gym. This could also be maybe a good place for a welcome center for the resort. It could be part of the idea that we are juggling around right now as a location for a Kiawah history museum. So I think there is a multitude of ideas, and I'm sure that the community will bring another 10 or 20 ideas into the play. So I don't think we are worried about the usage. It's at the end probably more deciding what is the best usage for the community. But I think there is a lot we can do together, foremost with the land that would provide us with the opportunities to mitigate the traffic issues.
Well, Mayor, so I have two questions for you that piggybacks off what Michael just said. One is the availability of the real estate building for this concept. Is it available? And then second, as part of that, do you think that Kika involvement, do you think that they're on board? Do you think that their involvement is necessary for this concept to come to fruition?
Well, as I mentioned at yesterday's town council meeting, over the last year, we had independent discussions throughout. We had discussions with the association, we had discussions with the partners, we had done a study on on traffic, that everything was done independently of one another. With the new council, after the elections, with the new council, Michael and I have been having discussions with Jordan Phillips, who's the senior, who's the partner here on site. I think so. That's a long-winded. I think that they are interested. They know we are interested. I think they would be interested. And as I pointed out clearly at the meeting yesterday, there is no deal. There is no price. Nothing has been executed. But there's a level of excitement, clearly a level of interest on all of our parts, on our part, the town's part, the partners' part, and the community association's part, that if we start looking at this thing collectively, comprehensively, holistically, that, you know, maybe we can really do something that would benefit generations to come. So again, yes, I think that they would be interested in selling it. We just have to figure out the appropriate, you know, price and appraisal and all of those business, you know, elements that come into play.
Wonderful. Before I turn it over to talk about Upper Beachwalker, would you like to add any final remarks in regards to the conversation we just had in the intersection, the KIRE building?
I think one topic we need to understand that should be part of this entire endeavor for us and the partners, the community association, is that we need to find ways to use the properties correctly, as I mentioned, in this wider vicinity of the current intersection. But I think it's also very crucial for us, and I do believe also for the community, that we find compromises on how the Upper Beachwalker Drive parcels are going to be used and built upon. I mean, there is a preliminary plan that goes by certain, you know, zoning requirements and maximum density topics, but that's a plan that doesn't have to be, you know, realized like such.
Right.
And we do believe, and I think we also get a positive feedback from Jordan Phillips and the partners in that respect, that we really want to find ways to design this property in a way that it really symbolizes what this island wants to stand for. Okay, careful development, a lot of nature around us, a lot of ways of mitigating traffic and just the feel and avoid the feel of overdevelopment. And that is also part of the discussions we are having as it relates to, you know, how many dwelling units should be really put in place on this property. How can we, you know, create larger setbacks from the roads so that you don't see these buildings from both approaching the gate but also exiting the gate. So this is all part of the bigger picture that we are discussing here, and we hope that, you know, the positive responses we have received so far can now be put into, you know, clear guidelines for how this entire property should be developed. So that's why we feel this is all belongs together and will help us to solve a lot of problems we feel we have, and the community feels that they need to be resolved.
Wonderful. Mayor, in regards to this holistic approach that was discussed with regards to Upper Beachwalker, do you feel the same with regards to taking the approach, looking at the intersection, the real estate office, and the discussion of Upper Beachwalker?
Of course. Beachwalker has seen dramatic changes over these years. With two big projects, one big project, the second one well underway, and the third soon to be underway. As Michael has said, it has changed the composition, the complexion of that road quite a bit. And the interesting thing is that the homeowners on that site were some of the original building sites on this island 30, 40, 50 years ago. So yes, it has to be looked at as was said, this last project on Beachwalker, Upper Beachwalker, that we wanted to be far more as amenable, as acceptable, as desirable to the community as it possibly can be. So it becomes a very important part of it.
Agreed. So what's the next steps?
Well, to a very large extent, the next step was yesterday. We announced what we were doing, what we had done, like I said another way, these first 6-7 weeks of the new year. We announced, again, as I mentioned, that this was all being discussed, but that there was nothing, more substantive, more of a fixed issue than that, but that we were going to have a podcast today, and Michael and John Moffat will be holding a open communication forum Friday. The subject, along with other subjects, will be discussed. We will be meeting back with Kiawah Partners and Mark Pramar. We've already been talking with the Community Association. We will continue to do that. We need to bring groups together. I think in the second subject we're going to talk about, Andell provides an excellent template for how things were done in terms of getting the community involved. We want to get the neighbors involved. That becomes a very, very important part. So it's a matter of just in keeping movement going, being active, and getting all of our groups together to begin to look at whether it's design and the flow, the feel of what this whole piece of real estate could look like.
Well, you provided the next steps explanation well. So what is the timeline? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
I think, as the mayor said, we want to conduct this idea and convert it into a project moving forward in a very transparent way. Right? We don't want to make the community feel that we are just doing something in the dark. That's not how we want to operate. And that's why we put out the information yesterday, so that the community knows what's going on. From here onwards, I think the best way to describe it is like the mayor said, we need to start communicating in a more broader sense. That doesn't mean that we have a lot of very large meetings in the next couple of months, but we definitely will have community outreach events. We will talk, as the mayor said, to various of the neighbors, and that is something that we need to accomplish over the next couple of weeks, because there are some timelines that we need to keep in mind, right? There's the development agreement that expires in December. We also have to understand that at the moment, the developer still pursues the current project as designed and as preliminary approved by the Planning Commission a few weeks ago. So we need to find, resolution to these topics in a relatively timely manner, so that we can start converting into this project over the next couple of months. And I would hope that before the end of this year, we have an agreement that everybody can buy into. Maybe not everybody, but at least the majority, I would hope. With the partners, with Kika, with the community. And from here onwards, we want to do this in a very transparent way and with a lot of involvement of the community.
Wonderful. Now let's switch to Andell West. This project seems to be in the making for some time now. It started with not overly successful plan back in early 22. But then, with a significant amount of community involvement from both Kiawah and Kasik, we're here today to discuss this project further. So, Mayor, I would like for you to go back in time and give us a little bit of information of what happened and how we got to where we're at today.
Well, history is always an interesting, looking at it is always an interesting perspective. First of all, there was probably a lack of understanding of the physical land itself. It is not part of Kiawah, it's part of the undeveloped Charleston County. Probably a lot of people didn't even realize that there was so much land there. It's hundreds of acres that it's owned by the Goodwin family that owns the resort. So I think that that had a little bit of difficulty just explaining what it is, where it is, and what we're doing with it. The subject of annexation came into play. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding that Freshfields was in the community, Kiawah is not, or Cassique is not in the community, the boundaries of the town itself, etc. So I think there was misunderstandings. And quite frankly, as desirous as it is to have open discussion and be transparent and to have engagement, we all learn. And I think that we did things back at that time in the fall of 22, we didn't emphasize enough about engagement and transparency. We thought we were, but we weren't doing as much as we could have. So this, where we're at right now, is quite frankly a learning experience. And and the project was a big project. Hundreds of residential units, a commercial development, not quite the size of Freshfields, but nonetheless a large commercial development. And I think it just became too overwhelming for all of us. And the developer backed out and pulled back.
Wonderful. So Michael, if you can, just tell us a little bit about where we're at today with regards to the project on Andell West.
I think in connection to what Chris Carrata, the principal of Riverstone, explained yesterday, actually, in the town council.
Correct.
With all of the involvement of the community, as John said, and the learning experience from what was maybe not done properly at the time, I think we are now looking at something we maybe only temporarily call the Plan B. And it really entails all of the concerns that the community has brought forward in these multitudes of different sessions that the developer had. And it really, creates this feel, as I mentioned yesterday also, this feel of as if Andell West, as we call it at the moment, was there from the very beginning. It seems there's a very proper connection between the current Freshfields and maybe the new Freshfields in just how the roads are guided through the southern part of this property. They moved the Harris Teeter significantly backwards so that it's not visible from the street, but also creates a more harmonious conjunction with the existing Freshfields. This opened up a lot of opportunities for additional amenities that I think the community will really appreciate. Another, green field area like the small one we have in the northern part of Freshfields for events and parties and whatever can be envisioned there, but also additional retail, additional restaurants, which I think is still a big need here for us on the island, with outdoor seating and a variety of different styles and food concepts. So all of this together created a very harmonious, a very nature-oriented plan, because also there's a lot of foliage, there's much bigger setbacks from the road, as in previous concepts. Even this much smaller gas station, which also was a requirement, is going to be shielded by nature so that it is not so overly visible, both from the Kiawah Island Parkway, but also when you make the turn.
Right.
I think that also traffic issues have been looked at far more comprehensively than probably in the beginning of last year, in how to route traffic, how to provide additional exit points. There is certainly a little bit of concern left that was also voiced by the community after on Kiawah, after some messages kind of leaked out. Why there should not be a connection point, for example, to the Seabrook Parkway. And those are all things that are still in discussion. I personally feel that Riverstone made a lot of commitments here, and I think that really the whole team of Riverstone, is really onto something that I believe will really please the community.
One of the things with regards to the project that we heard a lot from the community is the connectivity with Freshfields. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So as I mentioned, I think we need to see that there are today 2 roads that really connect through most of from the north to the south kind of direction through Freshfields. And that's exactly this connection point. So one is the street that basically passes by the current Harris Teeter and would be prolonged, is my understanding. The other one is either the street that passes by Vincent or the gas station. So one of those 2 will just be continued, and that is create a better flow, a better feel, and this entire nature concept that they are planning with also, areas that can be actively used by the community, will wrap it into something that I believe will have a lot of positive feedback from the community when we go out and show the plans as soon as they're ready.
Wonderful. And Mayor, one of the things that the Parkway from the roundabout to the first gate is owned by the town. At that particular intersection of the proposed project, we're looking at a roundabout. Do you want to comment on anything related to traffic? That's one of the concerns that we hear a lot from the community with regards to this project.
Yes, well, the fact that this is a project within the county, the expectation from the county is still the traffic studies needed to be completed, and we have done that. And so irrespective of whether it's part of the town or part of the county, we are responsible for that roadway and the traffic, and we have completed the study, and it seems to, clearly be demonstrated that there will be another roundabout. And matter of fact, we just reviewed with traffic consultants, not all that, just recently, that even with this Plan B, as Michael referred to it, that shouldn't have any material change to what was initially planned. So I think that that part of it will be addressed.
And there's actually an additional traffic mitigation point in the new property. So it's not only that we can access and leave the property through that roundabout along the Kiawah Island Parkway, but there will also be a second access point that will at least provide traffic that comes from the current Freshfield Circle into Andell West, and then from there exiting south towards Kiawah. And I think those 2 points, they are separated enough, will help us to mitigate the traffic in a way that we would not expect, or our consultants don't expect really any concerns. It seems to be the best solution for connecting this additional property. So.
Well, this all sounds really exciting. One of the things that I think the community probably would like to understand is kind of the next steps, because as of right now, I think that you mentioned, we're calling this Plan B. Plan A is still with the county. They pushed back their date with the county to April. So kind of what's next for us or for them?
Yeah, so similar to what we actually discussed earlier related to the Upper Beachwalker Drive parcels, also here we have so far a parallel process. I think we should understand as a community that the first attempt by Riverstone was a failure, but also created a lot of mistrust and misunderstandings also to the part. So I think we need to continue building back on where we started out, and I think yesterday was an important start for that, because we could listen to Chris Corrada and his input. And I'm sure the next steps will be, as he also promised, community involvement. So as soon as the plans are ready, I would expect in the next few weeks that there's another workshop, charrette type of thing, probably here in the town center, where community members can come and look at the plans and provide their feedback. And if this continues on a positive path, I would hope that then Riverstone is starting to convert into Plan B entirely. So dropping Plan A, going for Plan B. What we then have also discussed is that if that is the case, so if we can find common ground with the majority of the community, that then the town would help to speed up the process for the developer, and not having to redo everything with the county. Just start with us in a parallel process of an application of annexation and an application for a planned development of that entire So this way, we have influence, the town has, the community has the influence, and we can speed up the process significantly so that probably even sometimes towards the end of this year, we are ready to, or the project's going to be ready.
Wonderful. Mayor, would you like to add anything to that? I understand that, as Michael said, that we could potentially look at approaching or working with Andell West to annex the property into the town, which could expedite their project here as opposed to in the county. Is there anything you would like to add to that comment?
Well, as I said yesterday at the meeting, speaking personally, I think it should be annexed into the town. I think it should be a part of Kiawah. Freshfields, as some may recall, was not initially. It was part of Charleston County. In 2012, they applied, and that's the way the process works. You have to apply for annexation. So they applied to the town for annexation, went through the process, and it became part of Kiawah Island. And I think this property should be exactly the same. Interestingly, so does the county. The county has already told us that they think that this should be part of Kiawah and part of our annexation. But I guess it was mentioned, there were some bumps back in 2020, and I think we're past those, and I think that as part of that, there was Mr. Carrada's coming to the meeting yesterday and his willingness to continue to come to the meeting. I think we need to demonstrate that we welcome them into the community. I can't say enough about the support from the community members at Cacique, who really had, well, because of the proximity, had some of the most greatest concerns relative to the project. They're on board now. We've met with them or have been in meetings with them, and I think so. Cacique folks have understood this. Our folks need to understand this, and any questions that they may have, what annexation means and the plan development agreement means and all that. And we'll explain that over the, as Michael said, over the weeks to come. But yes, I think it would be important for that whole commercial activity, Freshfields and Freshfields 2, whatever we call it, should be part of Kiawah Island.
But in addition to this, I don't want the community to think that we are talking about annexation only to please the developer in the timeline. Although I think there is a benefit also for the community in a better timeline, because I think we all like to see this coming together, right? And therefore the timeline is a positive. But I think there are also other elements that we have to look at that would make it so much easier if both properties are under the same jurisdiction, right? I mean, look at all the ordinances that we have. If this would be remain in Charleston County, then there are obviously you cross over the border, and there are other ordinances.
Correct.
Right. I was just thinking this morning about we have an ordinance that would that has been very successfully implemented to avoid, for example, one-way or one-time use of plastic materials.
Yes.
Right. That is in fact in action. In Freshfields, it would not be in the southern part, which makes no sense.
Right.
Right. So I think there are just also very practical reasons why a combination of both under the town's jurisdiction would really benefit all of us.
Yeah, and I also add, I believe, as part of the community that you referred to, Cacique and others, Preserve Kiawah, working with Riverstone Properties on this property, and I think early on with the town, they have created a use table that mirrors Freshfields, but they've added some additional restrictions. This particular project will have no residential as part of it, is that correct?
That's correct. It is no residential.
Yep.
And the planned development that is targeted here, both with the county, but even more if it would come to an application for annexation and then a planned development agreement, so to speak, in parallel with us. We have a very limited, or we have an agreement for a very limited use pattern for that property, identical more or less with Freshfields.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for taking time out of your schedule to sit down and talk with me, and for your interesting insights on both projects and why you think that the path forward is beneficial for the community. But before we close, do you have any final comments or thoughts? And I'll let the mayor go first.
Well, again, as I shared yesterday, this is exciting. It has been a journey with both the project on Andell and the projects on Beachwalker. And, stemming back from the Cape, stemming back from the initial application on Andell, it has been a lot of changes, and a lot of changes potentially very quickly. And I think we're on a good path now. It is always difficult to explain developer rights to community members that may not understand the history and the perspective that it's taken within. Our job as municipal officers is try to ensure that the rights of the developer are respected, the rights of the community are respected, that ordinances are followed, zoning requirements are followed, and we're trying to do that. And but as much of that as we have to be engaged with the community has to be engaged with us. We have to be transparent. We have to explain, and I think these two projects are really bringing to light all of that. So as I said, there's right now there is a desire, an initiative, a process to begin. It began yesterday, it continues today, it'll continue on Friday, and it'll continue for weeks to come, so that at the end of the day, it's not that we could stop these projects, that wasn't the point, but that we can truly say that we've made them better. And that's what we're hoping for.
Council member?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned yesterday in the town council meeting, I'm really excited about both projects. I believe there is a real chance for us as a community to make this a memorable part of our community and our life, our daily life in both areas. I personally feel that both developers, the partners, as well as Riverstone, have really come back to the table, are willing to talk to us, and understand what the community wants. And as the mayor said, I think the Andell West history, is a great learning experience, and I hope that will also be the case for our ideas about the Beachwalker Drive and Kiawah Island Parkway intersection. I think there is a real value for the community to pursue. It will need compromises because, as John said, developers, property owners have rights, and we cannot just take this away, right? I mean, there are clear rules that governs us, but I believe that there are opportunities for us to find a compromise that hopefully the majority of the community will appreciate and accept. Now, this being said, I really want to again, on behalf of the town council, invite every community member to join us for these sessions that are upcoming. As John said, this is just the starting point. So very important is going to be this week, Friday, which is March 10th, where two of us, John Moffat and myself, will be available for the community between 9 and 11 o'clock in the morning here in the town center in the executive conference room to welcome any community member that wants to ask questions, make comments, make recommendations, or probably even leave some pieces of criticism with us to learn from. That's all okay. It's an open meeting. It is having a start point and an end point, but community members can really drop in at any time and ask whatever is on their mind. I would expect, though, that a lot of members will show up asking questions about Andell West and also the Kiawah Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive intersection, but it can be anything. There's no agenda, there's no opening statement, there's no closing statement. It's just us that want to be available for the community to have a conversation. So join us, please, on Friday, March 10th, between 9 and 11 here in the town center.
And when they come here, they just go to the lobby, and you guys will be in the executive conference room?
Correct.
Wonderful.
And I'm sure there are people that will guide everybody to the right place.
That's
and John and
correct.
I are eager to share coffee and some thoughts with everybody
Yeah.
who wants to come.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing your insights with us today. I am certain that the community will really appreciate what the town council is trying to accomplish here. This is very encouraging, and it feels as if we are heading in the right direction. Thank you again, gentlemen, for your time and insights.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.